The Rhodium Score. An original audiobook by Ken, of Ken's World of Science Fiction. Copyright 2023, Ken's World of Science Fiction, all rights reserved. Ben Howell, Cam Davison, and Anthony Marcet found themselves in a situation where the boundaries between right and wrong blurred into nothingness. In the year 2050, Earth had become a world of stark contrasts, where a privileged few thrived and the rest fought for scraps. The three unlikely companions were on a one-week journey towards an asteroid, a potentially life-altering mission driven by desperation. Ben Howell, a cantankerous man in his 40s, bore the burden of his own reckless choices. His life was a relentless sequence of poor decisions and overdue debts, the most haunting of which was the $3 million he owed to a ruthless criminal organization. He had already borrowed an additional $1 million to bribe an insider to help them illegally procure a spaceship, rendering himself a traitor to his own kind. The mob had promised to make him pay in the most agonizing ways before ending his life. Cam Davison was no better off. Her scruffy appearance betrayed her addiction to illegal drugs and her life of crime. A long list of felonies, theft, and violence had finally caught up with her. She faced the bleak prospect of life imprisonment unless she could produce $3 million within the month. Her dark eyes and haunted expressions told a tale of desperation and despair. Anthony Marcet was the most unlikely member of this trio. A mild-mannered man in his mid-50s, he had always adhered to the straight and narrow, never venturing into the shadowy realm of crime. But life had a way of teaching hard lessons, and it was his beloved granddaughter who bore the consequences of these lessons. She lay in a sterile hospital room, her life hanging by a thread. The medical procedure that could save her was exorbitantly expensive, far beyond Anthony's means. He was willing to do whatever it took to save her life. Their individual predicaments drove each of them to this risky endeavor, which involved stealing a spaceship, flying it to an asteroid made of mostly rhodium, extracting 600 pounds of the precious metal, then fly back to Earth without getting caught in the process. Rhodium, the most valuable precious metal known to science, is much more common on asteroids than Earth. The trio was able to purchase information from a corporate spy that indicated the asteroid is 60% rhodium, which is worth $25,000 per ounce, and even though their cargo bay could only hold 600 pounds, the potential payout was enormous, but so were the risks. As they embarked on their journey, these three souls sat in a spacecraft stolen under the dark shroud of the night. In the cold void of space, they began to share their stories, a tapestry of financial despair. Ben's voice, as always, was laced with irritation as he began.
You'd have no idea what it's like to be on the mob list. These guys don't play around. I owe them millions, and they're not the type to forgive and forget. I borrowed another $1 million just to get us this spaceship. We're taking a huge risk, and if this asteroid doesn't pan out, I'm as good as dead.
Cam glanced at Ben, her face marked with a mixture of sympathy and resentment.
You think you've got problems? I'm looking at life in prison. I've got so many charges against me, even if I could pay off my debts, the authorities not going to let me off the hook. I'm in this just as deep as you are.
Anthony, sitting in the corner, cleared his throat.
I've never been involved in anything illegal, but I'd do anything for my granddaughter. She's dying, and the only hope she has is that expensive medical procedure. I don't know what I'm doing here, but I can't bear to watch her suffer any longer.
Their stories hung in the air, each a testament to the desperation that drove them to this illegal endeavor. The vast expanse of space outside the spacecraft offered a metaphorical reflection of their troubled lives, endless, unforgiving, and cold. The spacecraft hurtled through space, the hum of its engines a constant reminder of their mission's gravity. As the days passed, Ben's complaints grew louder, but Cam and Anthony had learned to bear his sour disposition. They were united by a common desperation, and a sense of uneasy camaraderie had developed among them. Days turned into nights, and the three unlikely comrades spent their time planning for the mining operation that awaited them. Anthony's gentle nature made him the group's voice of reason, always urging caution and compassion. Cam's experience with crime came in handy, providing insights into the covert world they were venturing into. Ben, for all his gruffness, had an uncanny ability to make things work, earning him a begrudging respect from the others. As they neared their destination, the trio had settled into a surprising synergy. They were like pieces of a puzzle, each filling in the gaps left by the others. Ben's ability to identify potential pitfalls proved invaluable in their mission planning. Cam's street smarts and ability to stay one step ahead of the law helped them navigate any potential security threats, and Anthony's meticulous nature ensured that their equipment was functioning flawlessly. Their crew may have been an unlikely trio, but together, they were ready to execute their audacious plan. They had no choice but to succeed. Finally, the day of reckoning arrived. The spacecraft descended towards the rhodium-rich asteroid, a cold, desolate chunk of rock floating in the vastness of space. The three adventurers were fully equipped in their space suits, their faces a blend of determination and trepidation. The landing was rough, but they touched down safely. The asteroid's surface was harsh and barren, casting eerie shadows in the stark, unfiltered sunlight. It was a moment of truth. Their mission would either rescue them from the abyss of their troubles or plunge them even deeper. Ben, Cam, and Anthony stepped out onto the asteroid's surface, setting up their drilling equipment. With every ounce of sweat and toil, they dug into the cold, unforgiving rock, their breath fogging up the visors of their helmets. Each moment felt like a lifetime, as they were aware that the next few hours would determine their fates. Hours turned into days as they continued their relentless drilling, searching for the precious rhodium hidden within the asteroid. The monotony of the work was broken only by Ben's occasional complaints and Cam's nervous laughter. Anthony, on the other hand, remained silent, his thoughts solely on his ailing granddaughter and the life-saving procedure that the rhodium would fund. After 7 days, they struck rhodium. Their cargo hold could carry 600 pounds, and there was 10 times that in this vein. A glimmer of hope ignited in their eyes as they held up a chunk of the valuable mineral. It was an incredible moment, a realization that they might just escape their bleak realities. Anthony did some quick math in his head.
600 pounds of this stuff will yield $80 million each. Damn.
The cavernous silence of the asteroid's surface was shattered by the glint of a cold, steel handgun as Ben Howell pulled it from his suit, aiming it squarely at Cam and Anthony. His face, once etched with desperation, had twisted into a malevolent sneer.
I'm taking it all, and you two are not leaving this asteroid. I wasn't entirely honest about how much I owe the mob. Let's just say it's a lot more than I let on.
His voice sharp and devoid of any remorse. Cam and Anthony's faces contorted with a mixture of fear and disbelief. Their supposed ally had turned into a threat, and the stark reality of their situation weighed heavily on their shoulders. Cam, her voice trembling, was the first to respond.
Ben, you can't do this. We've come this far together. We had a deal.
Anthony, his voice filled with desperation, added,
Ben, think about it, Ben. I'm the only one who can repair the ship's highly technical systems. Without me, we're all stranded.
But Ben was unyielding, his finger resting on the trigger.
I don't need anyone's help. I never liked either of you anyway. I was the one who got us this spaceship, so you don't deserve anything. It's every man for himself out here.
The asteroid's desolate landscape became a battleground of words, as they engaged in a tense and agonizing back and forth. Cam and Anthony, driven by the desperate need to survive, did their best to convince Ben to spare their lives. Cam's voice cracked as she implored,
We can still make this work. Listen, Ben, I know where the patrols are, how to avoid them. We can get back to Earth and each go our separate ways. Killing us won't solve your problems. It'll just make you a murderer.
Anthony's voice was equally desperate as he continued.
Please, Ben, think about what you're doing. We came here to change our lives, to help the people we care about. Don't let their sacrifices be in vain.
But Ben remained resolute, his anger and fear driving him to maintain control over the situation.
I've made up my mind. You two were just a means to an end. It's too late to change that now.
He turned the gun on Cam and shot. The bullet went straight through her space suit and into her heart. She instantly fell dead.
I really hated that annoying woman.
Ben's cold remark hung in the frigid air as Cam's lifeless body lay sprawled on the asteroid's unforgiving surface. The weight of their desperate journey seemed to bear down on the remaining two survivors. For a brief moment, Ben turned his attention back to Anthony, a sardonic smile playing on his lips. What Ben didn't notice was the compact laser weld device hidden within Anthony's tool belt, a small, inconspicuous tool capable of welding metal from a distance of 3 feet. In one swift, unexpected movement, Anthony drew the laser weld, his trembling hand steady as he aimed the device at Ben. The powerful beam shot out, hitting Ben squarely in the chest, ripping his space suit open and tearing into his body. He staggered back, a look of shock in his eyes, and then crumpled to the asteroid's rocky ground. Ben's life was extinguished, leaving only Anthony, the most unlikely member of the trio, standing alone amid the barren landscape. He collected the 600 pounds of rhodium, loading it carefully into the cargo hold of the spaceship. With a deep breath, he turned away from the lifeless bodies of his former companions and made his way back to the spacecraft. The journey back to Earth was a solitary one, with only the hum of the spaceship's engines for company. Anthony's hands expertly navigated the vessel through the cold void of space, his meticulous nature ensuring that the ship remained in working order. Throughout the week-long voyage, he had to repair the ship on several occasions, grateful for his technical expertise. The mission had taken a dark turn, but the rhodium was now his responsibility, his only chance to save his dying granddaughter. Upon their return to Earth, Anthony wasted no time. He reached out to people he knew he could trust, individuals who could help him unload the 600 pounds of rhodium and find a discreet buyer. The underground dealings were treacherous, but Anthony had learned much during his journey with Ben and Cam. He navigated the complex world of illegal mineral trading, ensuring that the rhodium was sold without drawing attention from the authorities or the criminal organizations that had pursued Ben. In a sterile hospital room a week later, Anthony sits by a bed, his granddaughter lying unconscious, her frail form connected to a web of life-supporting machines. The room is filled with the sterile scent of medical equipment, and the persistent beeping of monitors creates an eerie background rhythm. Suddenly, he hears a soft voice, a voice he thought he might never hear again.
"Granddad. Is that you?"
Anthony's heart leaps, and he turns to the bed to find his granddaughter's eyes flutter open. Weak and fragile, she manages a small smile, a glimmer of life returning to her. Tears well up in his eyes as he reaches for her hand.
"You're going to be all right,"
he whispers, overwhelmed by a sense of relief and gratitude. In that hospital room, amid the backdrop of machines and the scent of antiseptic, Anthony found solace. His desperate journey, fraught with danger and betrayal, had led him to this moment, to a chance for redemption and, most importantly, a chance to save the life of the one he loved most.